We are going to be doing some research on the United States, policy towards Cuba. In order for us to, as citizens, to help shape that policy and tell our leaders what we think should happen, we should have a basic idea of the history of the policy and where we think things are headed. Then we can make a better decision for the future. A little bit about the embargo that's currently in place in Cuba. To give you kind of the backstory for it, we instituted an embargo, which is an official ban on trade or other commercial activity with a particular country. We instituted this against Fidel Castro and Cuba because of his ties to the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And so here's a picture of Fidel Castro. He's pretty old at this point. In fact, at this present time, he is now passed away. But he is the guy that kind of changed the course of Cuba, and is the reason behind the policy that we have created. The reason we have this embargo is, he ended up having close ties with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. His creation of a communist system of government and going away from democracy, like we were hoping for. The fact that he took over many American businesses in Cuba as he set up all of these things, and so sugar and cigars and tobacco and farming and those kinds of things were all owned by American businesses, and he basically confiscated a lot of those entities for himself and for the people of Cuba, and took them away from the United States. So that really upset us. And he's also committed what we would consider many different human rights violations. He controls the press, and so the newspapers can't publish whatever it is that they want. The people aren't allowed to talk poorly about the Cuban government, those kinds of things. And so we want him to stop some of those what we consider human rights violations as well. So we use that embargo to punish Castro for his actions and to get him to change his ways. The embargo has been in place for nearly 60 years at this point. Fidel Castro is now dead, and Cuba has not changed much of what we had hoped in all that time, and even though Fidel Castro is dead. So one of the questions is this embargo that we're doing to get him to change his ways really sort of working? What's been happening in recent history under the Obama administration is that now that Fidel Castro is dead, his brother Raul Castro is now in power. And the Obama administration has been working to normalize, what we call normalize relations, which means to make the relationship between the United States and Cuba more open to working with one another for the good of both nations, as opposed to us just kind of closing things off with them. And we're starting to lift the embargo. We have once again opened an embassy in Cuba. We've made it possible for American tourists to visit Cuba once more and travel down there, and enjoy the culture and some of the things that Cuba has to offer. We've also allowed some companies to send or sell certain food and supplies to Cuba again. And so we've opened things up a little bit. And really the Obama administration's belief is that if 60 years of making life hard on the Cuban people couldn't bring about the changes we wanted, then the policy really isn't effective, and we should try a new approach to bring about change. The Obama administration has chosen to begin to normalize relations with Cuba, sort of one small step at a time. We haven't just completely opened things up immediately and right away, but they're doing that to see if our relationship with them can improve and bring about the changes that we're looking for with regards to those human rights violations and changing their government and those kinds of things. So that's kind of the recent history under Obama. To bring it a little bit more full circle, we have President Trump has just been elected, and he is in office, and so he's already made some statements And he has indicated that the Obama administration's new strategy for Cuba and opening things up is not a good deal, and that he may change course. We don't really know if that's going to happen. At this point, President Trump has not made any decisions as of this writing, so we don't know which course of action he may pursue in the future. And so that's sort of the question that we're going to look at. And so now that you have some background information on this, you're much better armed to tackle the question of whether or not we should continue the course we are on or change course, as President Trump sort of indicates that he wants to do. But that is the assignment that you are about to work on.